Hello, it's Kim. I'm here with you for the weekly live stream and ish, weekly ish. And I'm happy to be joining you today. Sorry, there's weird shadows today. What is up, everybody? What is up? Hopefully, you're having a good week. It's August as of today. Crazy but true. And I just got back from a couple of days with my parents visiting, and I took pictures of all my meals to do a little post somewhere talking about eating on vacation or out of your element. And hey, Mary. And so, yeah, none of my family is keto or even really low carb. And so, what was that like to be in a house full of those people? Kind of used to it. Hey, Karen, good to see you. And so it was. So we eat. We don't go out a lot. And so when we went out, it was I got a Caesar salad once and a pork chop and broccoli another dinner. Actually, we're not a lot this time. And I got another salad the third time we went out. And at home, it was all barbecue, and mostly I ate the meat, and I didn't eat much of any other stuff. I ate some fruit. Nectarines are in season, and they're my favorite fruit, so I'll have a nectarine or two. I had some berries. I had yogurt for dessert. I brought some um, chocolate, what do you call it? Cocoa powder with me, and I mix cocoa powder into yogurt for my desserts. Hey, Nancy, wow, in the middle of Lake Arrowhead, go you. Um, and Yeah, so it worked out pretty good. Was pretty easy to stay on track with my eating. I'm trying to, keep it low carb, but not like, you know, high carb. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. So, like one, I had vegetables, I had sugar snap peas. By the way, somebody asked when I posted a picture of sugar snap peas if we can have people can have sugar snap peas, and my response to that was I think like a couple of ounces, like 4 ounces of them were like less than 6 grams of carbs. So I think just because the name sugar is in the title, sometimes people think, oh, I can't have sugar snap peas. They're sugar, they're sweet, but they're not. And there is natural sugars in them, yes, but like just because something is a little bit sweet, like bell pepper is also a little bit sweet. So if someone's trying to stay keto, you can certainly have some sugar snap peas. Can't have a pound of sugar snap peas maybe, but you can certainly they're not the worst thing you could have, at all, at all, at all. So hopefully, that's helpful. Any questions people have about food, about health, about life, please let me know. That's what I'm here for, to talk about with you guys. I had, yeah, I've been deep in like editing land with some things. Everything takes so much longer than you think it should to get like details taken care of. I hate details sometimes. Anyway, hey Angela, hey Roz, hey Nancy. Glad to have you guys joining me on the live stream. Hey Lagarata. And I am here. Ooh, I am dropping my computer somehow. What's happened there? There we go. Gotcha. Little woo. It just started to slide. I don't know what happened there. It's like on a little perch so that, or else I'm like not at appropriate angles. And you can see my lovely backdrop and in the background. So the reason I put this backdrop up, just so you guys are clear, I'm not like trying to hide from you, but I live in one of those apartments where everything's kind of open and there's no wall that I can film on. So I put up so I put up a wall. It's a partial little wall here so that it's normal instead of a chaotic scene behind me. I don't know. It's not this is not a, what do you call that? Green screen. It's just a well, fake wall. I mean, it's a real wall. I don't know. Where does the line drawn? Anyway, it's a backdrop. We'll call it that. So I hope people are doing well. I am trying to be an organized human, just like many of you. By the way, I don't know if of you knew this. I'm taking a little hiatus from my podcast just for the month of August, just to have a little bit more time off. and kind of half vacation. And so coming back in September. And one of the things I was thinking about is a little weird thing, but in my past history, I have had some interesting jobs, including I spent uh, a long time teaching about design and especially around organization. I was a closet designer and for a while, and then I taught closet design for a while. And in that, it wasn't just about closet design, but it was there was a lot of stuff that connected to like how to make your life work better. It's not just like about storage, but like why are we storing this? It's just a lot around simplicity, design, having a good life, making your life easier. Anyway, I was thinking about putting out an episode about kind of how organization and your environment help you live a better life, like a lower stress life, and how it all kind of ties together. Because I feel like it all ties together in terms of like the simplicity of your diet, the simplicity of your environment, your sanity, right? There are a lot of those things that go together. Is that too far off? Would anyone enjoy an episode like that? I was thinking about, maybe people would enjoy some talk about like kind of going out a few layers. Like, because for me, it's like if the whole of my life supports my mental health, supports my eating, if things get crazy in one area, they're crazy in another area. So I was thinking I could include some little info on simplifying not just your food or your exercise or your fitness or your health, but like, how do we make our life work better overall? Anyway, crazy idea, but I thought, why not? Why not broaden the horizons a little bit? What about you guys? What works for you? Like, what areas of your life feel like you've got a good handle on them? And what areas feel like you need help in them? Like what areas are you like, gosh, this is a little out of control? Like I'll say it, I'll say it. For a long time, I didn't really have my money situation under control. And now I do. And I started using some systems and I everything's automated and organized and like it works now. Whereas it was kind of in disarray, not because like I didn't have enough, but it was like it was very I like didn't have it working. And I was just with my parents and my mom was like, "Oh, I have to pay this bill." She wasn't like stressed about it, but she was like, "Oh, I have to remember to pay this bill." And she's like, "Do you think this is the address I send the check to?" Because she's away from home, so she can have all the stuff. And I was like, "You don't have that on auto pay? That's crazy." And it made me think, oh, a lot of people don't have their bills organized. Like they feel like, oh, I've got to like do things like we like control, right? Or the illusion of control. So we think, okay, I want to write the check because when I write the check I pay attention and I do that sort of thing, right? So it's like, oh, like how can we organize our life so that we have more mental attention to put where we want it? So I'm thinking about doing some topics like that. Anyway, that's one thing. All right, I have a question, so great. Angela said, recent lab TSH was normal. However, T3, T4, reverse T3 were below normal. And thyroglobulin 1177. So that's 1177. I say this because if we only looked at TSH, my Hashimoto's would not have been caught. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely so important. So yeah, your TSH was normal, but you had low thyroid hormones beyond that. So all TSH means is if TSH is normal, it just means that for whatever reason, your body felt like it was okay. Like it wasn't being signaled to produce more thyroid hormone, but then you were very low on thyroid hormone. And yeah, your antibodies are very high. So absolutely a case of Hashimoto's. So super important information. I'm glad you caught that, Angela. And you used Dave Feldman's Own Your Labs. Yeah. So Dave Feldman, you guys know Dave Feldman? He runs Cholesterol Code with Siobhan Huggins. And Own Your Labs is his and Siobhan's company. It's a company you can go online, ownyourlabs.com, and you can order your own blood labs. So you can order tests for any blood tests that you want. If you can't find a blood test there, you can email them and say, "Hey, what about this test?" Sometimes it's just not up on the website. And then you can go to Quest or LabCorp with the order that you get from their company, and then take it to get your blood drawn, and then you'll get your results online, and it works great. And the neat thing about they're not the only company. There's Ulta Labs. You can do it directly through Quest. So there's lots of companies you can order it. So you need a prescription, like a lab order from a doctor to get your blood drawn, right? But there are companies that can do it for you remotely. You get your order remotely from their online doctor. And there was five, I think it's now down to 4 states, including New York, unfortunately, where you can't use a service like this. But most states, you can order your own labs. Now, insurance will not pay for it if you order them directly, but a lot of tests are surprisingly not that expensive. So, yeah, so that's, because a lot of times when, with the blood labs book that Dr. Barry and I have done, a lot of people want to order tests that their doctor doesn't want to order. And so what are they going to do? And so, you can go to these kinds of services and order your own tests. The neat thing, among many, there are many neat things, but one of the neat things about Own Your Labs, from Dave Feldman, is there's on the order form, you can elect to allow your data to be used. So there's a questionnaire, like if you're willing, are you low carb? Are you keto? How do you eat? That kind of thing. And then says, are you willing to let us use your lab data? Now, what they do is they take your name and any identifying features off of it. So it's totally anonymized, as a verb. And so they give you 10% off if you let them use your data in studies that Dave Feldman is spearheading. And so that's kind of neat because Dave is trying to get a lot of research out there for, how diet affects different blood markers. So, anyway, I think that's super interesting. And I'm like, I would do it for free, but it's also nice they give you an extra discount on that. So that's kind of cool. Um, I was talking this weekend, I was teaching my parents a little bit about blood labs, given the topic we're talking about right now. And my dad is very mainstream. My dad's super mainstream. He's a ex-lawyer, right? He's a retired lawyer and a corporate lawyer, which means very different. Trial lawyers and corporate lawyers, not very similar, actually. Corporate lawyers are like very detailed, rule-oriented people. So he was having a lot of trouble with me explaining that reference ranges did not mean optimal ranges. It's very challenging for him. He's a rule follower. He loves the rules. And so that was an interesting trying to get that through was interesting. Um and we were talking about the difference between estimated labs and calculated labs. Do you guys know the difference between estimated labs? So there are certain labs where they don't directly test it. Like there's something called the GFR, glomerular filtration rate. But if you notice, and this question came up in a previous live, and I was like, I don't know what the E stands for. So there's a little E next to it at a lot of labs, EGFR. And E stands for estimated. And so the glomerular filtration rate is estimated because it's actually pretty invasive and difficult to test a direct GFR, though apparently you can if you need to. But I think it's more than just a easy blood draw. And so they do an estimated one, and they use to do the calculation for the EGFR. They use your creatinine levels. And anyone who's learned a little bit about creatinine is a waste product from creatine. And so when your body filters this out, you can test how much creatinine you have. And creatinine itself is a test they run to look at what they look at as liver function. But what's a little crazy is creatinine is made from the breakdown of protein, and it's supposed to, like, there's a calculation about what your creatinine level should be. But if you're very muscular, you have more muscle mass than another person, your creatinine is going to be off. If you eat a lot of meat, your creatinine might be off. And if you eat, and there's one more thing, lift weights, eat a lot of meat, or you take creatine, which is a supplement that I actually think in a non-doctor recommendation way, most people should take. It's protective against brain injury. It's good. It's all around a good thing. So it helps with depression. It's not just for meatheads. Anyway, so all these things can affect your creatinine level, which is going to freak your doctor out that your creatinine level is high in and of itself. But then the glomerular filtration rate is going to be high because your GFR is going to be calculated from the creatinine level. So there's so much to know about what's going on with these various markers that might help or hurt you if you don't know when you get these blood labs done. And your doctor could be convinced that your kidneys are giving out. And in fact, it's just that you eat a lot of steak. And in eating a lot of steak is good for your kidneys. So then you might, so it can be rough out there. And so it's really important that we all get to know what labs mean and what we need to do to be an informed partner in our health. And so that's why it's become such a important part of the work that I do to make sure people are as educated as possible about their blood labs. Because when we go into these things not understanding the context of how these things are, right? Then we it's like a game of telephone and we're not getting the right answer out of it. So you need to know, oh, is that an estimated lab? Like some cholesterol tests are estimated. So lots of things to pay attention to. All right. Angela said, weight loss is difficult when autoimmune disorders are haywire. At the over the last 18 months, I think that's months, MN, brought thyroglobulin, it's a tongue twister one, from 1500 to 1177 by eating ketovore. Thyroid more important than weight. So yeah, so if your thyroid is improperly functioning, it will reduce your metabolic rate by up to, I believe, about 25%, which is a pretty big amount to have to deal with. And at that point, it's pretty hard to lose any weight and also remain sane and healthy and, all those things. So, important to take care of yourself, important to get your body humming along properly. So I'm glad that your numbers are starting to improve and you're seeing some benefit, for sure, Angela. Hey, Marie, glad you caught alive too. Happy to have you here tonight. Happy to be here to answer people's questions, talk about whatever you'd like me to talk about. I take requests for sure. Tia, I see a comment from you without a comment. It's weird. It's empty. So if you meant to put a comment in and I just missed it, I'm sorry, but I do see you're there. So I'm glad to see you there. I don't know how you end up on my board with zero comments. I don't know what happened. But anyway, if you think you asked me something and I didn't get it, I'm sorry. Just try it again. By the way, if you like the stream, like, subscribe, comment. It all helps me so much get the word out to other people about what I'm doing in the world, which is trying to make people sane and healthy and feel good and, give them some information. I think this stuff can be so complicated, and I'm trying to put it in words that are a little easier. Although sometimes I get a little spun around and, you go on a ride with me where I'm like, how do I say this in a simpler way? But, anyway, and I am somebody who has been on the journey myself after losing over 100 pounds on this journey. And now I'm sort of just being a human, trying to be a better human every day and deal with having a brain that wants to eat more than I want to eat and a body that does not have a very good metabolic rate and just, live a life, live a good life instead of living a life obsessed with how unacceptable I am, which is the life apparently my brain wants me to live some days. Anyway, hey Kim, glad to have you visit the live. Hey Maine from Noreen. And what else? What's going on, people out there? Who's got things? I have my sippy cup. I had to buy a sippy cup for the Tahoe situation because I can't live without a sippy cup. My parents and I are cup incompatible. They like small cups. They don't drink as much as I do. And when you're at altitude, so where I was like, I think it's like 8,000 feet. Thirsty. You get thirsty at high altitude, especially when it's hot. So I was drinking constantly. And I brought my little element packs with me. So I got lots of my electrolytes. Whenever I go to any higher altitude, I live at sea level, but when I go much above 5,000 I was about to say 5,000 square feet. No, 5,000 feet of elevation, I need a lot more electrolytes. I need a lot more salt, or else I get a totally bad headache. And it's terrible. I feel like I have the flu. But if I just down my little element packets every day, I feel so much better. Hey, Christy, you say I enjoy listening to your podcast. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm going to be doing more episodes starting in September. Just taking a little breaky break from the podcast. Although I'm doing replays for the next 4 weeks, and I'm doing listener favorites, which are all like me interviewing somebody. So you guys can hear from some of my favorite people talking about topics that I think a lot of people are interested in. So hopefully that keeps everybody happy for the next few weeks until I'm back on the air. All right. What else would you like to hear about, people? Anything. I'm here for it. Let's see. Just thinking about what I've been doing. Laundry. There's nothing very exciting about that today. I was like, what did I do today? I went to I went to the grocery store. I returned the rental car that I used to go on my trip, and then I walked home. And oh, I'll talk about that. When it's a nice day and it's not too terribly hot and the sun is out and you need a little bit of like good mental health, I think it's really important to get yourself out in the sun and get some walk in. It was so nice for my mental health walk. I think a mental health walk very important for life. Nancy says, here's a whole packet of element. Yes, you absolutely. I'm sure you're having some on your little kayaking trip. That's so exciting. I think I saw a picture online of you on a lake. It looked very pretty. Hey, Teresa, glad to see ya. Hola to you. Do I use a whole packet? I do, but I think I put it in a little bit more water. Like I'll put a whole packet in like a tumbler. But sometimes I'll put it in a bottle of water. So I probably put like a packet of element in maybe 16 ounces of water, not 8. I don't remember how much they say to put it in, but I probably a packet per 60 ounces of water. You have to be careful if you're using a straw. I have to lift the straw up a little bit because sometimes the bottom is, you've got to keep mixing it anyway. But I do. So when I like most days I have one packet, but when I'm at altitude, I'll have like 2 to 3 packets a day. I use a lot of salt on my food too. Karen made Nisha's ground chickens nuggets today. That sounds delicious. I saw the video. I haven't made them yet, but they look delicious. Marie says, I've gained 5 pounds after losing 80 pounds. Congratulations on losing 80 pounds. I maintained it for 3.5 years. Now I'm more just low carb, but my muffin top has returned, even though I'm only 124 pounds. I have no torso. What food is best to eat to reduce belly fat? So you can't spot reduce, unfortunately. There's no belly fat food versus thigh fat food. It's just that our bodies decide where to put fat on them based on hormones and genetics. And so, whatever kind of food is going to help you eat a little bit less and uh, find a tolerable way. I will say it's not unusual to put on a few pounds after a loss and find your new normal, but you also don't want to go down the slippery slope of 5 becomes 10 becomes 20, right? So I would say just look at reducing maybe a little bit of some of the things that have crept back in, or some of the things that you might be eating in excess, or maybe add a few more steps. Like if you're not already getting 6 to 7,000 steps, a day. That's, kind of minimally appropriate to keep weight off. And they've done a lot of studies that while exercise is not crucial for successful weight loss, 90% of people that keep weight off after a large weight loss exercise. So I would say that if you want to maintain that weight loss, if you're not already incorporating some good weight training and just a lot of movement into your life, that those are going to be crucial to long-term maintenance levels. Karen says, I use Element with my Keto Chow shaker cup and some water. Nancy made the nuggets today. Yum, yum. All right. Nancy says, I was having so many foot and leg cramps when I got up here. Yeah, altitude really a lot of cramps for sure. I just feel like it disturbs your electrolytes so much. Element totally helps. A little Southern brother said, Kim, how much weight have you lost doing this way of eating? So I lost about 60, 65 pounds eating keto, and then another 40 to 45. Like there was some fluctuation in the middle, so they kind of overlap each other a little bit. Um, Eating what I would call more of a high protein, low carb, more moderated fat approach. And so, if you incorporate sort of my total low carb journey, it's a little bit over 100 pounds. And and so part of that was like hardcore keto, and part of that was more like low carb, pretty low carb, but low carb, though I've experimented with a few more carbs, but low carb, high protein, moderate fat. So there's sort of a changeover that happened part of the way through. But I kind of feel like it's just a continuum of learning what works for your body. And for sure, when I first started keto, when I first started this journey, keto was absolutely the way to go. Was so much more satiating. I saw results when I'd never seen results before. I stalled out. So why did I make a switch from keto to more high protein, low carb? I stalled out. I wasn't losing any more weight. I started to see my weight go back up. And I said, I don't want to do that. Did a lot of research about what would work for me. Dr. Barry actually challenged me to eat more protein. When I started eating more protein, I was eating a fair amount. I started keto when the protein fearmongers were loud. So I started keto low protein, got better. I got to like adequate protein, but then eventually went to not, I don't even think of it as high, but 1 gram per pound of ideal weight is what I transitioned to. And when I made that transition to the 1 gram per pound of ideal, my goal, I found I couldn't eat as much fat because I was just too full. So I dropped the fat, and then dropping the fat, raising the protein, the weight started coming off. So that's kind of what happened. And so now I work with people anywhere on that spectrum from full keto to lower carb, higher protein. I don't support, I mean, for the average human, I don't really like, I don't support as in I don't help provide support for high carb diets. That's the one way of eating. I'm like, that's not my wheelhouse. And really the only people I think should potentially be doing any kind of high carbs are probably athletes or people that are so active they just need a ton of energy. And even then I have some doubts. But I personally support anything on the low carb spectrum. Angela said, I made cloud bread and keto chow egg pudding for the first time. How was it? What do you think? I'm a big fan of the old fashioned cloud bread. And I've also made it with Greek yogurt instead of the cream cheese, but that old fashioned cloud bread is some good stuff. And also, some people call it oopsie rolls. So similar. And I know that sugar-free mom, Brenda, makes a cloud bread loaf that's also very good. So if anybody wants to make cloud bread into a loaf, you can look up sugar-free mom cloud bread loaf and you'll find the recipe. And I've been meaning to make keto chow egg pudding. It looks really good. It's basically just eggs and keto chow, right? I do like a loaf. Oh, it's not a loaf. I do a flat bread. That's the word I was looking for, that's keto chow and egg white protein. together that is out of this world. So I love that a lot. So I'm a big fan of baking with the keto chow for sure, for sure. Anyway, hey Gracie, good to see you. How you been doing? I know you've been going through some stuff, so I'm happy to see you join the live. It's nice to have you here. Angela said I made it with parm cheese and garlic. It was very tasty. Oh, so like a savory pudding. That sounds delicious. I love that idea. That sounds really, really good. I'm thinking in the fall of doing another cookbook. What do you guys think? What kinds of recipes do you want? Like, I mean, everybody wants easy recipes. I've been doing a lot of higher protein stuff, so I might put out a little cookbook on higher protein eating. So we'll see how that goes. What kinds of foods do you like to eat? What do you guys like? Christy says, I'm working hard on trying to make sure I'm staying on the wagon. Good job. Yeah. Since last Thanksgiving, I managed to take off about 30 pounds. Now trying to get the next 100 plus off. Go, Christy. Um, it's been hard, but I'm trying. Having medication sabotage and the death of my mom isn't happening at all. I'm so sorry about your mom. It is very hard to live life. It is very, very hard to live life sometimes when around you is a lot of pain. And so I'm really glad that you're you're coming back to doing the things that are really good for you. So good job. And, we are all rooting for you for sure. And just, stay with it. If you need help, please let us know. Gracie says ice cream. Well, have you gotten a Ninja Creamy? I think those things are amazing. Gracie says creamy cookbook. The problem is I only have like 4 creamy recipes. They're all the same, just a different protein powder. But definitely I can include a creamy recipe or two in a cookbook. Nancy, so what I do is I think I have it up on my website. I call it protein focaccia, and you can do it with either keto chow flavors, or I also use PE Science, which is another protein powder that's also whey and casein blend. So the savory version is literally, I think it's like, I don't remember the off the top of my head. I have not made it this week, so I forget. It's water. I start with water and egg white protein powder, not as much as you would use for like the traditional loaf in terms of protein powder. I think it's like 150 grams of water and 50 grams of protein of egg white protein, but double check the website, kimhowardson.com. Um, and I start beating that into like a kind of a meringue, and then I dump in a packet of keto chow, if I'm doing sweet, and some allulose. That's it, right? I think, yeah. And then I just make that incorporated. Oh wait, and then 4 eggs. I beat in 4 eggs because the egg yolks are helpful, and I don't see any reason to separate them, so I just add 4 eggs. And then I make it all incorporated, and then I in a use a small, like a quarter sheet pan, and I put in some parchment, and I make it like, about this thick, which is, like focaccia thickness, and then I bake that for like, I think 325 for like 20 minutes or so, and it makes essentially like a puffy pancake if you use a sweet flavor. Now, when I do savory, I use PE Science because it has the unflavored whey and casein protein. I'm thinking about using the keto chow chicken because that is also the whey and casein. It doesn't work with beef protein isolate. Um, and then I still use allulose, but I use less. You have to use some allulose in these recipes or they get sticky. Um, and in the savory version, I add some spices, some savory spices. If I have rosemary, fresh rosemary, I'll chop that up and throw that in there. So basically, it's a super simple recipe. It's water, eggs, egg white protein, and then a casein whey blend and some allulose, and then appropriate spices. And then I bake that, and it's thick enough so I cut it into squares, and then I'll cut it through the center, and then I've got like 2 pieces to make a sandwich with, or use as a bun or something like that. Super easy. What is casein? Asked Karen. Okay, so dairy protein is found in two varieties. So if you milk a cow or you get or you get milk, if you don't have access to a cow, um, the and then you get milk. So you have a cup of milk, okay? And in that there's water, fat, um, lactose, and protein. So that's what's in milk. So you can separate out all those parts. And if you just take the protein part out of milk, you get whey and casein. It's 80% casein, what comes out of your cow. So that casein is casein, casein. And you are familiar probably with whey. Whey, because you've seen whey protein. So whey protein it's only 20% of the milk, right? But 20% of the protein in milk. It's not 20% of milk, it's a 20% of a portion, right? 20% of the protein in milk is whey, 80% is casein. So keto chow is dairy protein. Dairy protein is going to mimic that 80/20. And so ca- cheese has more casein and less whey. And so when you make cheese, you drain the whey off. And so whey is a byproduct of cheese making, which is why there's more whey protein out there, because the cheese makers honestly used to like throw that away. And not and that then they were like, "Oh no, we can use this because it's a good quality source of protein." And so dairy protein or casein and whey combination proteins are just that they haven't taken out the casein for another use. So it's a little more expensive than just whey protein because whey protein is a byproduct. And so why do like to use a whey and casein protein blend rather than just using whey protein? Well, casein is very different in nature than whey protein. All of you are like, this is, I don't want all this information. Sorry. But casein thickens up when you add it to liquid. It gets like if you mix whey protein with water, you get something the consistency of water. Like it's like chocolate milk consistency, right? But if you add some casein to water and mix it up, you get pudding. It thickens, it forms almost like a gel, like an expanded puddingy consistency. Um, and so when I use it in baking, it provides a different texture. It gives it more of a bready or muffiny, gives it a better texture. And so I always use a combination of whey and casein when I'm doing both baking and when I'm making a creamy in my Ninja Creamy machine because it's creamier, thicker, and a much better consistency. So I'm a big fan of a combination of whey and casein blend. Um, so that's a very long answer to what is casein. Joanne says, I would like a high protein chaffle recipe. Well, that's a fabulous idea. Absolutely, Joanne. We will work on that. All right. So people like the idea of a little bit of more protein recipes, which is good because that's what I have these days. Christy says, I found a delicious shake and bake recipe and I've been using it on pork chops and chicken. Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear it. So yeah, so protein powders, you've got vegan protein powders, you've got egg protein, and then dairy proteins, and then dairy so breaks down into whey and casein. Nancy says, "What is PE science?" It's a combination. I think they sell other protein powders too, but like I think they have a vegan line, but their main line is a combination of whey and casein. So that's why I use them for baking. They have a flavor called white chocolate macadamia nut it's very sweet, but I've been using that in my creamy bases. It's got a very strong vanilla flavor as well. So those have been really nice for ice cream base. I haven't baked with it. I think it was pretty sweet, although it tastes kind of like a cookie almost. And so yeah. And the reason I don't exclusively use keto chow is just there are occasions when like the PE Science sells one that's unflavored. So if I'm doing something savory and I don't, and I want just a base baked mix and I want to add all my own flavors, that product is very helpful. And then I have a few of their sweeter flavors because some of them are good. They are pretty sweet, Nancy. And it just depends flavor, different flavors, different levels of sweetness. But if I'm using them in baking, right, and I just don't add a secondary sweetener, then they're not that sweet, right? Because if I'm adding eggs and other ingredients, it mellows it out. If I were just adding it to like almond milk and making a shake with it, I think I would find it way too sweet. But if I add other ingredients, it can balance it out. But yeah, they are all the protein powders are pretty sweet. I think that keto chow can seem a little less sweet in part because it's got the salt added. There's a lot of sodium, right, added to keto chow, and that salt will balance the sweet. So that's the way that works. Um, just looking at the comments to see if I have a question to answer. Yeah, so that's kind of the way that all works. And I try not to order like 20,000 different protein powders. So I kind of stick to those two brands, Keto Chow and PE Science. And if Keto Chow has a flavor that's going to suit my needs, I stick with them. But it kind of depends on what I'm looking for in my experience. And because I love the Keto Chow people and I want to support them as much as I can. I don't really do much shakes. But I use a lot of protein powder in baking. Christy says, "Is my cloud bed recipe on my website?" So the one I was just describing that I make a flatbread with, that one is on my website as protein focaccia. I also have my version of the egg white protein bread that I like. So Maria Emmerich she calls it a protein sparing modified fast bread. I call it protein bread. But she started the whole thing. Then Indigo Neely took the recipe and ran with it, made a bunch of changes to it. I took Indigo's recipe and made my own changes to it. I think I give credit to everybody along the way. It's not my recipe to start with, it's my version of other recipes. Um, Most of the recipes on the website are mine. That one, the protein sparing modified fast bread that I call protein bread or egg white protein bread, anyway, also on there, but it's my version, like how I like to make it. Because it's like a game of telephone, everyone makes their own. But I have a bunch of different bread recipes, Christy, on my website, kimhowerton.com. Look at recipes, look through. Um, Nancy asked if I have ever tried Equip. I have. I think it's got great flavor. It doesn't really thicken up very well because it's beet protein isolate, which doesn't get very thick. Um, so I think the Quip is very, very good. Uh, but I have not really used it in baking because it doesn't have the same properties as the casein and whey protein, which I prefer. But I have seen people bake with it. And I think Equip flavor is amazing. And the, nutritional profile is great. It's 75% beef protein isolate, 25% collagen protein. So, yeah, there you go. Oh, you know what, Nancy? I did make a creamy with the Equip, and it totally worked great. So, yes, I did when I first got the creamy. I did use it in the creamy, and it was very good. So, yeah, I did do that. I don't use it in baking, but I did use it in the creamy. The creamy doesn't have the same requirements as other things, um, like baking. All right. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up for the night soon. Any last questions I will answer, and then we'll call it a night. I'm glad that I've had you join me for this little Q&A, and I'm glad that you are here, and I'm glad that you're doing well, and I wish everybody a very successful week as we get here into the month of August. All right, guys, have a fabulous one, and I'll talk to you soon.